Cortana in case you're in the wrong talk. So, my name is Will Schrader. I go by the handle Armjoy. I am a security researcher and penetration tester for Bears Group LLC, based out of DC. We do a lot of government private sector stuff. You know, the obligatory, we're hiring just like everybody. We want to hack stuff. I'm a co-founder and active developer of the Veil Framework, veilframework.com. We presented some of the tools at ShmooCon this past year. In 20 seconds, the Veil Framework, it's a tool set where its goal is to bridge the gap between penetration testing and red team kind of capabilities. So kind of the flagship tool is Veil Evasion, which generates AV evading executables. We have Veil Catapult, which is like a kind of a payload delivery system, and recently released Veil PowerView, which is a PowerShell and situational awareness tool. So kind of spread over a lot of stuff, but the overall theme is kind of the evasion and stealth. So the my GitHub is there. Armjoy, my personal blog is armjoy.net. These slides will be posted up and tweeted out with the BSides Austin hashtag afterwards in case you guys want to rest and stuff. So real quick, what I'm going to go over today. So Cortana, what exactly is it? What can you do with it? Okay, that sounds kind of cool. You know, it's this attack scripting language. What are the actual use cases? What are the capabilities? What can you really do with this? You know, you think, okay, it's just another scripting language. What's the big deal? I'll show you how you can kind of use it to actually automate a lot of your post-exploitation, and even kind of beyond that, you can extend this really awesome tool I'll talk about and glue new tools together and just do stuff that you really can't do with anything else out there. And real briefly, disclaimer, I'm going to go fairly kind of heavily into some Metasploit stuff, so if you're not super familiar with it, I'll try not to go too deep into the technical weeds, but if you've never used Metasploit before, which, the fact this is Rapid7's research base, I hope most people at least heard it. But that's where I kind of go over the basic Cortana, where it came from, what it is, all that kind of stuff. I'll go into 5 specific use cases about how it helps with testing. So these specific scripts that I'm going to go over about kind of the functionality in Cortana and how it lets you do these kind of interesting actions. So auto cache dumping, plain text stuff, parse it out, dump it to a database. That's kind of a simple example. Safety net shows you how to kind of inject additional backup shells and help you save your sessions. Veil Evasion is like a full-featured integration of the Veil Evasion tool suite into this additional tool I'll be talking about. User Hunter is kind of an interesting little tool that lets you find where domain admins are logged into the network. And Beacon kind of shows you, I'll kind of go over what Beacon is and what this script does. But it's kind of an example of not trivially modifying the GUI that I'm going to be talking about. So Cortana, what the hell is it? It's a attack scripting language that integrates well into 2 different tools, Armitage and Cobalt Strike. Armitage is kind of like a free open source version. It's like a GUI for Metasploit. It utilizes the Metasploit RPC interface. Cobalt Strike is the free version that we use on assessments. And some of the functionality I'll be talking about is kind of restricted to the paid version, but I'll call that out. I'm not trying to fool anybody out of the little asterisk. But Cortana was Raphael Mudge's, who's the creator of these tools. It was his DARPA Cyber Fast Track project that was funded over about 6-7 months. Went to DARPA, they thought it was cool enough, gave him a bunch of money. He came back 6-7 months later with this new attack scripting language. And it hasn't really, he presented about 2 years ago at DEF CON, 2.5 years ago, whatever it was. Yeah, 2.5 years ago. It hasn't really caught on yet because it hasn't been kind of fully marketed, or people really don't understand the capability of it. Now I've kind of taken up a few kind of little interesting use cases, and the guys that run the Beef project, or one of the guys associated with it, actually did a full-fledged integration of the Beef browser exploitation framework into Armitage with the script. It's really neat. I'm not going to quite cover it here, but people are starting to kind of realize the full-fledged capabilities of this. So why should you use Cortana? It allows for the easy customization of an already existing powerful tool. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. As pen testers, we hate doing kind of repetitive actions, so you can use an existing tool set and use it to automate a lot of the stuff that you need to do on testing. So again, yeah, a lot of these actions can be automated, and you can manipulate them and do kind of contextual loops and stuff in pretty interesting ways. And it lets you minimize the time spent on assessment doing these repetitive tasks. Okay. Another thing I don't have up on the slide, but it also kind of lets you combine multiple tool sets into kind of one single attack framework in really interesting ways. And there's not really anything else out there that lets you do that at this point. So we'll kind of go over how that's actually accomplished in a little later in the presentation. I'm going to go over a few slides, kind of a quick background in Cortana. Do it in 5-10 minutes, and kind of just get you guys hopefully up to speed a little bit. It's basically a set of extensions to the Sleep scripting language that allows for the control of Armitage and Metasploit straight. So Sleep, really quick, is a Java-based scripting language, heavily inspired by Perl and built by Raphael, the guy that built these tool sets. There are a couple links about some of like the Sleep documentation, Cortana documentation. It's like a 70-page tutorial just on Cortana. You know, there's like 100 or 200-page tutorial on Sleep. It's like actually a full-fledged language. This wasn't some little hack together GitHub repo that someone just put up. Sleep's been around for years. Cortana's been, like I said, has been around for about 2.5 years, so they're relatively mature. So Sleep, really quick, it's primarily a glue language. It was designed from the ground up to be embedded in Java applications. So it's basically like Java scripting without like doing the web JavaScript type stuff. Raphael kind of identified a gap area for this years ago. Built this language kind of on his own time. Like I said, it's been matured since then. I think it was originally inspired by like IRC scripting bots or something like that. So much of the back end of Armitage is actually written in Sleep. You say, why would you build the back end of this kind of powerful Metasploit GUI and weird syntax language? And it's because Raphael made the language, so he decided to do this one. So, I guess if you build your own language, you can use it for weird purposes. I don't know anything else that really uses that one, but it's not too bad. The syntax isn't too weird. It's pretty easy to look up. Like I said, a few months ago, I didn't really know anything about it. After hacking some stuff together, doing these examples, there's some pretty powerful stuff like that. Cortana 101, like how do you actually interface with all the Metasploit stuff? It's kind of baked in natively through the use of Metasploit framework's RPC interface, or the remote procedural interface. So you can do things like send commands to interpreter sessions, interact with the backend database, launch modules, pretty much anything you could do with your typical NSF console, you can do through the RPC interface and therefore through Armitage and straight. Like real quick examples, the open command that sends, the sysinfo interpreter command to a session. The host info is all the host info for a particular IP address out of the backend database. Exploit, the name of the exploit, and then the address that'll launch 08067 or favorite go-to for really crackly patch systems onto a particular IP. So, it's the syntax isn't too bad. Like these specific little commands are the Cortana commands that are kind of exposed out. So it's a little bit weird to pick up just at first, but then you have like full functionality of the entire Metasploit framework without having to interact with the command line or do whatever else. And even cooler, you can set up these asynchronous triggers to fire on particular actions or events. So if new sessions come in, you can perform a certain action every time. If interpreter or shell commands are executed, you can like trigger things to say, okay, now that's executed, let me perform this action and pass the result to this, and then I can do that. So you can do these really kind of cool things. Sort of new hosts or services or routes or pretty much anything are added. It is a giant list. It is a tutorial level, like little action hooks. You can do some crazy stuff. So it lets you perform these really cool contextual actions and automate the flow of a lot of your post-exploitation. The stuff you do every time, and you're having to type in every single time. Or just load up some RC scripts and trying to kind of bootleg them together and all that, but it's kind of hard to build logic into that. So, because, again, we hate repetition as pen testers, we hate doing the same thing. And up until this point, there wasn't something that let you really kind of script a Metasploit with any appreciable logic. There's a really quick, really short little example of an example Cortana script. Like we have this on-session sync, so every time the session comes in, you check, is it a Windows interpreter session? Like if it is or not. If it is, that runs m command, which runs just like a shell command on the box. It changes the directory to the C drive and executes an interpreter command that does recursive directory listening. So basically, this script is like a little, it's not that great, it's a simple example, it's like a secret file finder. So it runs those commands, and then those triggers I was talking about are going to be up there, where every time dir is executed in a interpreter session, that exec dir, this function will trigger. So it'll get the host, and then it gets all the results of the output of that command, and then steps through every single line and says, is there a secret file in this line? If it is, download it into your box. So every time the session that comes in, it searches the entire box for this particular, something that matches secret IP, secret file finder. So this is, I think this is used in like a CCDC example or something like that. This isn't something we use in the field, but just kind of wanted to give you an example of kind of the basics of what it looks like with simple functionality. And And also, the user interface for Armitage can be really easily modified and extended. So you can do program menus, you can do like interpreter menus, to where if you have an interpreter session, you can do stuff where you like right-click it and do different actions and stuff like that. I'll show all this as a demo here in a little bit. You can change host icons, you can do pretty much anything you want to do like the Armitage GUI, which is pretty cool. There's a lot of examples in this GitHub. That's Raphael Mudge's actual kind of like master repo of every single Cortana script that anyone's ever come up with. If you submit any Cortana script to it, you basically just blind accepts all the pull requests. So it's a good kind of like master little encyclopedia. On my personal GitHub, I'm maintaining kind of like a Cortana pack. It's a set of these 5 or 6 scripts I'm presenting on. It's stuff that we use on assessments, and it has like one little script you can load up that loads everything. So this is kind of what we use in production or on test. So you guys can clone those down if you're interested in playing with any of this. There's some pretty intensive examples in the master development line. So that was a quick, like 5-minute, 7-minute primer of kind of what Cortana is. A little bit kind of what you can do with it. So over the next, basically kind of for the rest of the presentation, I'm going to go over these 5 use cases that I built and kind of demonstrate what you can actually do with this. You're probably thinking like, okay, you can script, whatever, run mashup or something, that's it. But some pretty cool stuff you can do. But with kind of the basic, example 101. Every time a interpreter session comes in, we, some of the first things we do is we're going to get system, we're going to hash dump, we're going to run mimikatz, optionally maybe see if a particular user we want is logged in. And one of the things that always annoyed me was if you're hash dumping this stuff and you get the ASP.NET and Gatsby support whatever crap, it just like boots up the database if you're on assessment and you're trying to search through for like actual creds and there's all this ASP.NET crap or whatever people accounts don't mean anything. So with this, we can easily just filter stuff out and get it. Again, this is, you can tweak this to get the exact behavior that you want. You don't just have to rely on, trying to go and like modify, the backend of interpreter or something like that. So how can Cortana kind of help with this? So there's a couple of these functions, like the on-session sync, which means every time a session comes in, do a certain action. You can execute interpreter commands with the same commands. We can like run wdigest on sessions that come in. And you can set up these triggers, so like on interpreter wdigest every time that command runs successfully. This kind of post-processing trigger can run. So we can do this stuff like parsing out the results and like and all that. So this script, this grabcredits.cna, that's the little extension for Cortana scripts. Every time a new session comes in, it'll run hash dump and mimikatz. It'll filter out all the account names, that's stuff that we don't want. It'll format all the creds and dump them into the database exactly how we want them. It'll check the users, or it'll run a PS and check all the actively logged users and active processes, and it'll compare that against the list you can specify if you happen to want to do that, if you're looking for a particular user. And it'll announce the results on a team chat. And really quickly, the team chat is a little star, it's the cobalt strike thing, where you can set up like kind of a central C2 team server that people can connect into. So the team chat is just kind of a little shared IRC style communication channel between all the people on your team. So if you have 5 team members doing the assessment, as they can just watch this little team chat, and these results will automatically start pouring in. It'll say, mimikatz, here's a plain text credit from this machine and all that. So you can just watch it, and like credits will just start pouring in. Pop sessions, which is kind of cool. But this is an example of the little team chat. I know it's really small font, but it might name Will, and it's saying, oh, there's a target user has a process on here, or mimikatz on that IP on that session. The plain text is coming from that. And I'll try to show you this some of this functionality. Cool. So a little more advanced, kind of the second use case that any of you guys are pen testers, that losing shells sucks. It happens a lot. If you use just interpreter versus TCP, use a stream-based, it's kind of inherently like there's a lot of ways that it can die, and you don't always know why. So before we do all this kind of stuff, like once we get a session in, we try to inject a bunch of more sessions over and over again, and get 4 or 5 different interpreter sessions going in case stuff would crash. That's really noisy and all that kind of stuff, and it was a pain in the ass to do it immediately every time. So our standard procedure now is to inject multiple sessions or beacons, which beacons will call off strike, but it's basically an asynchronous C2 agent that communicates over HTTP by default once a minute. So it's very quiet. It's a lot less traffic, and it's a lot more stable actually because there's less functionality. So we'll kind of inject we'll inject like one of these into the server as a session comes in. And then if our main interpreter session dies, we can just re-trigger interpreter kind of inject using this little kind of like malware style HTTP asynchronization. And we also, want the option to where if we have multiple C2 control servers set up, maybe we want to inject one payload that goes to one or two to the primary and one to the backup, in case they just, IR happens to catch our primary C2 server because that's where all the traffic's going to, then we can, actually just have a backup. So again, if you're dealing with, more than a handful of interpreter shells, this gets to be really tedious if you're, anyone that's done this, it starts to get really tiresome to like run these same commands and inject stuff over and over and over again. So you start to think, okay, what's a better way to do this? And how can Cortana help us? The session sync, like I mentioned, and you can launch post modules. So you can launch a particular post module that will inject an additional interpreter session or backup. So, and this will inject like the little safety net payload. The problem is though, we kind of ran into this, is we like to inject two payloads, one into the existing process, and then one into explore.exe of whatever user is running. This is because Explorer is a lot more stable. If you happen to crash it, it'll reboot. You're not going to trash the blocks. Like just kind of our standard process that our boss kind of drafted down to us. But there's nothing out there up until this point that lets you kind of smart inject into an existing process. You always need a PID. So yeah, the existing payload inject.rv, which is a Metasploit post module, only allows for injection against predefined processing. But smart migrate, which is another Metasploit post module, allows for smart migration into process name. This will go through every process name, find it, and like actually migrate to it. So I was like, okay, why don't we just take the two bits of functionality and stuff into one module? So you can do easy injection into a specific process name by default explore.exe. So that's the smart payload injector RV that I built. I haven't done a pull request in Metasploit. I've been lazy, so been meaning to do that in the next couple weeks. So there's another module we'll talk about. So they're not in the tree yet, but they're including the little Cortana pack thing that I have, so you can just download it and put it into your Metasploit install. I think the main reason was like doing a pull request for Metasploit, if anyone's done it, it's like a non-trivial process. And like 40 pages of documentation you have to read, so you don't look like an idiot. So this is this little kind of safety net Cortana script. This is when you pop it up, this is what it'll look like. Again, we'll go through the interactive interface. When it pops up this nice little safety net tab, these are the multiple different kind of little backup payloads. You're going to be injected to every session that comes in. You can do as many as you want. You can do 100 if you want, but we normally do about 1 and 3. You can add from existing like listeners that you have. You can add custom Metasploit stuff. Like here, adding from the existing listeners. These are all the existing listeners on the C2 host. You can choose one. You can choose if you want to inject into Explorer as well, and then just keep going. So you can do custom stuff for like, if you want to do a Windows or interpreter HTTP or something like that to different servers. You can try to make it as customizable as possible. And like I mentioned, you can modify like these little contextual menus. So from interpreter session, there's now when you load this up, you can do like an install safety nets option, which will inject all the safety nets you have to a particular Metasploit session. And you can also configure it to auto run. Every time a new session comes in, you can automatically install this stuff. So that's just something that, because we did it every single time, we're like, all right, now it's a lot easier because we don't even care about it. Cool. So third example. So Armitage and Cobalt Strike, who we use, awesome. But sometimes we want to make kind of like non-trivial, specific like GUI modifications that normally you wouldn't be able to do with something, some of the other type of paid products. So say, like one example we had was we want to have a Cobalt Strike kind of view or workspace multi-host that just have like the active beacon C2 agents in it, which by default these don't show up. You can filter by like all the active interpreter sessions, but you can't just see something with all the active beacons. So again, this is just kind of an example, but you can build, you can do this to do other things, like if you only want to have hosts and have a certain property, you can set this stuff up to like display those. You can do that. That's a little like kind of some more descriptions about like beacon exactly what it is. So we can, because we can interact with the full backend database, we can grab all these active beacons. And another cool little hook that Rafi has in Cortana is you can set up heartbeat callbacks perform specific actions on a regular basis. So, like every 5, every 15, every 60 seconds or something like that, you can have the same action performed. And we can also modify our GUI in pretty useful ways. You can, this filter host image, you can check, does this host have a particular property? If it does, then like, let's change its icon, let's change its display, let's change its label or something like that. And something else kind of cool is we can actually custom map our own like keyboard shortcuts. It's a, well, I guess a minor silly thing, but you know, if we want to actually open up the interactive like Beacon browser, you can customize it like that as well. So this is kind of an example of, you know, a normal host that would show up in Cobalt, which I'll show. Like it now overlays this nice little blue icon for anything that's a beacon in it. And when you right click, it exposes, I built in like this new little menu so you can like kill the C2 agent, you can clear it out of the database, you can go to the interactive prompt. There's all kind of stuff that isn't quite, you know, it's not in the tool, but we thought it'd be cool functionality. But instead of having to pester the developer with, you know, issues and get pull requests or whatever else, or trying to figure out the back end, we can, on our own prerogative, just like build in this additional functionality into our tech tool set, which is a really, really cool thing because you're kind of separated from being completely dependent on the developer or the tool you're using. Cool. This is probably probably my favorite example, kind of like the heaviest lifting example. I think it's the longest. Is the PSexec and Metasploit is great. You know, everyone uses it, but most people know the standard exe templates that they use get caught by everything now. It took a few years, but finally, AD vendors are like, oh, these same exact exe templates that don't change at all, and everyone's using the pop boxes at system level. Like maybe we should actually just start doing a static signature on those. It was kind of silly. It took 2 or 3 years for that to happen. So normally, what most people do in use PSexec is they'll, you know, generate their own little like obfuscated executable, and then do like an exe : custom kind of stuff. So that just starts to kind of be a pain to do it every single time, you know, reconfiguring every time, and in Cobalt Armitage, it's also a pain just like it is in SF Console. So the other project I'm on, like I mentioned, Veil Evasion, does a really kind of cool job of generating a variety of executables that will completely evade antivirus. If you want more information, or if you're interested in that, you can just talk to me after, or check out the ShmooCon presentation we had this past year. I think it's reported on archive.org and all that, and the slides are up. So we're like, it'd be cool if we could fully integrate Veil Evasion into Armitage or Cobalt Strike. So this is kind of that cool example of being able to take 2 completely different tool sets and glue them together in an interesting way in your single attack platform. So with Cortana, we can actually, this little filter user launch command, you can basically hook every single time somebody calls Wielding. So every time that's called, then we can like substitute in our custom path or custom executable. And you can actually interact fully with the backend files, you know, like the backend system, so you can execute any system command you want. This is kind of how we're interacting with the Veil Evasion on Python script, as we're actually calling it manually on the command line. It's kind of a hack. We recently just released an RPC interface for Veil that we're going to be integrating into soon that opens up a little socket that will kind of very programmatically generate payloads and give the options and all that kind of stuff. But for the time being, you know, we execute all this stuff with command line. So this it builds like a nice little GUI menu, which I'll show, and it lets you specify all the normal Veil Evasion options. Then you can invoke that to create a nice obfuscated little binary. And it hooks all the PSexec calls in Armitage, substitutes in that path for that exe, and uploads it to the system, you know, runs it to the system, and you get your shell back. So there's no more caught payloads, and this is about as like kind of, you know, graphical, like, you know, push click, about as like seamless to your workflow as we can make it. Like we actually use this in the field some. It's not just put up there as like a random little one-off demo or something like that. We wanted to actually have real integration with it. So real quick sidebar for a slide or two is, so a lot of the exposed Cortana functions are great, but you know, we were still sometimes kind of restricted on the menus and stuff that we wanted to build. But Cortana scripts can integrate, they're basically like JavaScript, so you can integrate any Swing interface stuff that you want. If anyone's programming Swing, I feel for you, but it was the worst 5 days of my life trying to figure this stuff out because it's not fun, doing swing stuff. But Armitage has a bunch of examples, so you don't have to build it from scratch. Armitage is open source, it's in Cali, and it's BSD licensed. So you can take these examples, like chop them all up, do whatever you want with them, and BSD is like you can do whatever you want with the code or do keywords effectively. This is just a real quick example. It's a list, all the backend like sleep scripts that Armitage is built on, again, weird little language, but this is similar to it's because Cortana is just an extension of sleep. You can unzip Armitage, look at the backend, and say like, oh, okay, it's building its dialogues like this. It's kind of basically what it did. Take these examples and adapt them to basically look exactly how you want. Like, the only point here is to show like this tax dialogue thing. It shows all the Java Swing stuff in the back end and the MSF integration and all that. But again, the point here, not whatever all source code, the point here is you're not restricted even to just what Raphael exposed for Cortana. You can do any Java GUI custom building stuff you want if you're willing to suffer and put a little bit of time in for it. So like now, we have this nice little veil evasion tab that pops up. You can look at the current set PSExec payload. You can do a veil evasion like install path and click generate. You click generate. This whole like little backend thing, which I'll show, has a it has like all the payloads, MSF payloads, and all those port and all that kind of stuff. Every configurable thing you possibly want. It has cool stuff where like if you double click on payload, it'll dynamically load up all the available veil evasion stuff that's currently in your current version, which I think it's 2.60 now, is released last month. You have like all these Python stuff, like C#. I don't think the PowerShell stuff really kind of works well through this, but you can click that, and if you upgrade your veil evasion install, as long as the location doesn't change, like this will dynamically be updated every time. Cool. So like you can do all that, you click generate, and then it'll pop up with like a little dialogue that custom compiles all your stuff, looks all the PSExec and all that. So that was that use case. So kind of one more, which is kind of saving the best for last. So the usual goal for a smash and grab pen test. You get on a box, and this is normally, we're not talking about like red teaming, we're not talking about trying to be stealthy, we're not talking about trying to really hide from IR guys. It's when you have, anyone that's done the 4 to 5 day pen test, like you get in, you get on some boxes, and you effectively have, maybe a 3-day window or so, maybe 2 days of view post-exploitation. You're like, all right, I need to find out who the domain admins are, or the power users, normally as domain admins. Find out where they're logged into. Find a set of credentials that lets you take over their machine or your system. And you want to PSExec to that box, pop it, run, meaning cats, now the interpreter, and you're off to the races. So then you can go find their awesome database or whatever the heck it is that you're actually looking for. So this is greatly simplified, but this is the normal kind of pattern that we're going to go through for, again, that kind of smash and grab, get in, find out where they are, find the bread and get out of there. So the situational awareness 101, if you guys aren't aware, this is obviously the old school way of doing it. That's been working for a while, but net user, get all the users in the domain, get all like the groups, get the the users for a particular domain admin group, net view to actually see all the machines in the domain, net view to try to find the shares on a particular host, all that kind of stuff, get the sessions on the box. Normally you had to do all this like kind of manual net command and like report all of it for your situational awareness and figuring out where you are, where you want to target, who you want to target, where they're logged in, all that kind of stuff. It was kind of a side note, I'll kind of tracing through some of the existing stuff and I'll tell you what I built after this. So in 2012, DiRecon, Rob Fuller released this really cool, nifty little tool called netv.exe. If you guys haven't used it, you should check it out. It's very fast, it's very cool. And it enumerates systems using Windows API calls. So it'll find all the hosts on the domain, all the shares in the domain, and all the logged-in users on all those hosts in the domain. And it spits out like a huge amount of like SME traffic very, very, very quickly, so it's not stealthy at all. This stuff kind of sounds interesting. The Veil Power View recently released does a lot of the same functionality as PowerShell. It has options to be a little more stealthy. But two of the API calls that Rob uses really interest us. Again, I'm going to be done with just a couple slides, and then I'll try to kind of bring it back around. But this net server num system call will enumerate in the main controller all the systems of a particular type. You can run this and say like, okay, it'll give you every single box on the network back. And I did not know this existed. It kind of blows my mind it does. But this net workstation user num call gets all the users logged in on the system. That doesn't seem like a big deal, but you don't have to be a local admin on a box. And you can run this, and it'll tell you all the users logged in on that box. Which doesn't seem like a big deal, but then you can chain it together and like find out what domain admins are logged in. Do all that fun stuff. So a lot of this functionality, like anything you can pretty much ever think of, in some form it's probably integrated in Metasploit already. So like this SMB enum users domain runs that, network station user num call using Railgun in 20 seconds. Railgun is an extension from Interpreter released a couple of years ago that basically gives full Windows level API access from a host, like it exposes it to the Interpreter host exploitation module. So you can have a post module and it can run anything on that system at that lower level Windows API stuff. So you can run that to get all users logged on a particular machine. Cool. It's like one little piece of the puzzle that we need. This local admin search enum can take a range of IPs or a host or whatnot and see if the current user actually has local admin access to that box. And it also has the option to get the logged in users with that same kind of little nifty system call. The other two, this enum domain group user is pretty simple. It just runs, net group, a particular group like domain admins on the domain. It gets all the hosts, parses the results, but that's kind of another piece that we need. And then computer browser discovery queries the default domain controller for all hosts using that server node call. So all this functionality that we want to build kind of this like user hunter type functionality, it's already there. So I'm not like claiming that I invented anything revolutionary or crazy or whatever, but took a lot of the existing functionality and just repurposed it in kind of an interesting way. It was userhunter.rb. It's a module that I built. Again, it's not hasn't been tried. I haven't done a pull request yet, but it's a Cortana pack. But it draws from that existing functionality. It can take a username, a user list, or domain group, like the domain admins or power users or whatever it is. Query for all those users against the current domain controller. You can take a host list, or it'll run a net view to get all the active hosts on the domain. The whole point is here is you want all your target users, and you want all your target machines. Then it runs on every machine it finds. It runs that little nifty net workstation user num against every target host. So it's all the list of machines, and it gets the list of every user logged for the machines that it can access. This doesn't always work on every machine. Like I think if you're a regular user, you can't use on the domain controller. Sometimes there's like a little memory access, whatever stuff. But for the most part, it was pretty effective. We've done this on assessments. Kind of scary. And it compares this against the target user list. Every time there's a match, it runs a little, or throws a little specific note into the backend Metasploit database, like a little custom user.hunter note. So even if you just use this module without Cortana, if you want to, like you can just run it, point, click on a domain, and it'll tell you where domain admins are logged in. Which I thought was kind of cool. And there's a lot of this functionality is also integrated into Power View if you want a pure PowerShell thing without having to throw up a server session. So cool. It seems like I think it's a cool module. Maybe you guys think it's dumb, but we can, if we want to use Cortana to kind of graphically map all this stuff, like how can we extend that and integrate better? Because we can interact with the backend database, we can actually get all of our custom defined little notes. We can do that heartbeat thing again and say like every 5 seconds, let's like check the database for all those notes. And then for each host image, we can check and say like, okay, if this host has a target user, like let's change its icon. So this userhunter.cna, exactly what I just mentioned. It pulls the database, gets the notes, and it modifies the host icons for the system of found users. So like in the end, you can like right click, it'll expose a little user hunter thing on any interpreter session. You run it, it'll go for a bit, and then on your screen, on your graphical screen, it'll just start popping up where domain admins are logged there along with the name. And if you have local admin access, you can run the additional modules. And try to see if you can BSides to those boxes and then get your plain text spreads. Cool. So demo. I'm going to try to demo all of this functionality. I'm sure something's going to break, so I do have a backup video for when everything inevitably crashes. All right. Cool. So this is the main Cobalt Strike. It looks just like our menu stuff. This is the main interface. So if you want to load up a script, you do the little Cobalt Strike scripts. You choose load. And here, this is the Cortana pack with like the beacon, the grab creds, the references, does like little links in the help menu, interesting stuff like that. The safety net user hunter and all that kind of stuff. Actually, I forgot that my demo has like 18 parts, so I'm going to be sure I don't forget anything. Okay. So I'm always going to have this little like load all script. Click this, you only have to load one. It loads up everything in the pack in your interface without having to like click through and go through. There you go. Cool. So now we have this like little veil evasion thing up here under Cobalt Strike. We have like this grab cred, so we want to go and configure that to auto run on grab creds in every session. You saw like the safety nets. This tab will pop up, and these are going to be like kind of the backup like payloads are going to be injected to every session that comes in. What we're going to do is we have some existing listeners already in this box, so I'm going to go ahead and choose this little asynchronous guy. Add this. Do I want to inject an Explorer? I'm not going to at this point. And then I'm finished. And I could, if I had multiple C2 servers and stuff, and all those were lined up, you can just go through and add every single one you want. So everything in this little tab will be injected into a session once we run that. And I'm going to go ahead and configure it to automatically install safety nets on initial sessions. Yes. Cool. All right. Now, we're going to use the veil evasion thing, the little interface. Like here's the whole custom swing stuff, crack that to deal with. But if you double click on the payload, you get that list of all the payloads I was talking about. So we're going to go ahead and do this guy, Python shellcode inject AES, so it generates your shellcode using Metasploit, encrypts it up, all the AES encrypts up, like obfuscates everything up crazy, and then runs PyInstaller and rewind and does all this crazy backend stuff. And it pops out this nice little PyInstaller self-extracting payload. You can choose that, and you can choose whatever payload you want. It's already pre-configured. So here, if you want to hook it as a BSides payload, you can go ahead and do that. Otherwise, if you just want to use this as like a graphical interface, you can go ahead and use that too. So this will take maybe like 10 seconds because it's running. It has to invoke the framework to get shellcode, obfuscate all the Python stuff, and then run like PyInstaller and rewind in the background, which takes a while. So there we go. And it pops out. This is this root veil output compile BSides. So that's our obfuscated payload that will now be hooked into every single BSides call we do. So I've got a little like 3-4 computer network running in the background, some domain stuff. So let's try BSexecing to this box using like a local admin password. There's full antivirus on this box, or security essentials updated and all that, which is normally pretty good, even though we get by it. We get by pretty much almost anything. So when we launch this, if you see here, it says, there we go, using custom payload root Cobalt Strike, whatever. So it automatically, without me having to do anything or reconfigure anything, took that, the root veil output compile BSexec path, auto substituted into every single BSexec call. So we got that. Let's look at our shared kind of thing, like, oh, Mimikatz ran automatically, dumped all the stuff to the database, and it found results. It said, like, look, here's interesting stuff. Company will and password popped up. So if we go to, just go ahead and show you and run down the line. Like creds, like it's actually parsed out to the back end database, all that ran, same with the hash dump, so we didn't have to do anything, it just popped up. You saw that this icon changed to blue. That's because our little backup like beacon kind of thing was automatically injected without us having to do anything. So now we auto have an asynchronous agent that got injected as a backup, which is what we do every time anyway, so now we don't have to worry about it. We just pop boxes like we normally would, it injects it, and with the beacon specifically, if there's already an asynchronous agent running for this particular IP, then it won't re-inject. So you don't get 100 agents running in the background or something. You're trying to build in some logic that detects you already have a session or whatever. You're not just trying to move everything. So, but like that little menu here, we can kill it, interact with it, or do whatever. So if we wanted to re-trigger, we could re-inject with all that stuff. So, and the last thing in the demo is first, I'm running as system here because I have BSexec. You see I'm running as that. What I want to do, if I'm hunting for domain users, I need to have, I need to be under the authentication context of a domain or a user connected to domain. So here's this company will, all right, it's PID, 320. So I'm going to migrate into 3920. And again, if I could set up a little smart migrate thing or something, I forgot to on this. So now that we're running in our interpreter section as a domain user, you can try doing interpreter. Again, if you want to reinstall the safety nets or run the graph cred stuff with meeting cats or hash on. So now we can run this little user hunter. Starting the user hunt on blah 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 session 10. Please work. There we go. Cool. It popped up. Look, it said company admin happens to be domain admin. Layout. Oh, wait, here it is over here. Table view. There we go. So you saw that graphical icon changed and also the label changed and showed you the name of the domain admin that's logged into that box. So we've used this on assessment, we've run it, and then just post will pop up with little icons. Oh, cool, the domain admin. And try to figure out how to get into that box.
So are all these scripts running on the team server, or is this just locally on each client?
It's interesting. So the way it kind of conceptually works is if you have your C2 server, if you need to run interpreter post modules and stuff, those modules need to be installed in that server. So the user hunter module and the smart migrate or the smart index module, those need to be on the team server. But other than that, these scripts run on the client side. So that's why by default you don't auto run, because normally if you have 5 people on assessment, you don't want every single person injecting stuff or doing all that. So what we'll normally do is have everyone will load up all the scripts, and then we have one person, one point person being the person that injects the backend and safety net and all that kind of stuff. And then everyone else will use the views. So one thing I didn't mention is where's the target view? Graph view. So because this is a paid feature, so with the viewing the beacons or whatever that kind of stuff that would just be cold, right? But everything else the integration of veil evasion, grad creds, and all that kind of stuff will run freely in Origin as well.
Are there any API docs for writing scripts and interacting?
Yep, there is. If you just search Cortana documentation or something, he has, there's that 70-page tutorial that tells you every single function, how you use it, and because Orange is an open source tool, if you really want to get into the guts of it, you can just rip out the back end and then see how it's a full implementation of Cortana in the back end, the ESD license. So, if you need the weird sleep syntax, you can look that up. But if you want just the specific Cortana hooks and everything, he's a really good documentation writer. So, pretty much, there's only a couple times I had to ask him questions, but he's also really responsive on Freenode under Armitage. Really nice guy, can answer pretty much all the questions they have. So, and again, if you guys are interested in doing this, and if you start doing it, and you want to hit me up, I'm very about this. So please ask me any questions. I'm happy to help. But again, with all this, a lot of assessment actions that we do over and over again, you can script those in a reliable way. You can modify the tools interface without having to go to the developer. Really cool is we can glue in additional, completely disparate tool sets together in one attack platform. So, you can do stuff something I'm probably going to write next, like a responder, the TLN poisoner and that kind of stuff. Integrate that in with a nice little thing. You can just use all that. Or the veil evasion stuff and all that. So, the less time you spend doing these repetitive actions, the more time you can actually spend owning the client and kind of demonstrating your value, which becomes really important when you effectively have like a 4-day testing window or something like that. So we want to maximize the actual amount of analyst time spent on this stuff, and not on just the let me inject, let me dump, do all that kind of stuff. Well, and again, these 5 examples I gave, like I'm still relatively new to this too, so this is by no means any kind of complete reference on what can be developed. There's a ton more stuff. Like I didn't even think about doing the beef integration and the beef strike kind of thing, and like full complete integration. Like I wish I would have put a screenshot of like all your beef bots and like you can graph it on like a map and all that kind of crazy stuff. So he's been doing some really cool stuff, and it's pretty limitless on whatever you want to do. And if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, that's my Twitter handle, Harmjoy. My email, I'm Harmjoy on Freenode under Bill Armitage. And the Cortana pack I have is on my GitHub. So if there's any questions, I can answer them.
Yeah, outside of the PDF, is there any like video tutorials or other stuff like that that you use, or how do you
Yeah, so
get a document?
yeah, he has a lot of videos, but they're more of like RPG Cobalt Strike.
Yeah.
For Cortana specifically, we talked to him and he said he feels like he's maybe, or he hasn't quite paid as much attention to Cortana as he wanted over the past couple of years, but he's picking it back up now as people are expressing interest. So like there were some problems with the back end and stuff where I'm like, it'd be really cool if we could do this. And it was like actually like the interacting with the beacon agents or something, that wasn't a call. And he actually put in like a semi-undocumented like call, or he exposed the functionality just so he could do that. So he wants to be responsive, but the way I basically learned was the examples on his GitHub and using that like 70-page doc. Because I normally, it's hard, I don't know, I'm lazy and don't want to build something completely from scratch, so I kind of look at like, how does this work? Okay, they do that, and just kind of hack it together and go from there. But there's like one like 3,000 line Cortana script on his